This is E2B, Energy to Business, a podcast by Opportune, where we bring you in-house expertise that serves all energy sectors. We examine emerging financial and technology trends and provide a broad perspective on ways to stay ahead, create opportunities, and execute market strategies.
Welcome to another episode of E2B, Energy to Business. I'm your host, Shelby Skurhawk. So let me set the scene here. So we're talking about why technology should impact your investment decisions in trading systems. Now, when we discuss trading systems, we're specifically talking about ETRMs, or energy trading and risk management systems. To discuss this, we're joined by Kent Landrum and Stephen Bell, who are both managing directors in Opportune's process and technology practice. We're also joined by Niall Mccarthy, head of global sales for ETRM Cloud. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for the discussion. Niall, let me start with you by asking you to share some of your background. So before joining ETRM Cloud as the head of global sales, you led teams supporting a top-tier community data management solution. So when talking about ETRM technology challenges, can you share a little bit about the software solution landscape and how that's really evolved from legacy systems to these new postmodern solutions that we're talking about?
Absolutely. So, I'm going to provide a perspective from the vendor today, and as a newly built system, as a startup in the ecosystem, using cloud is the obvious choice. A new system can be built so much more quickly. With much less resources, we can build a system and bring it to market infinitely quicker than in the past. Those advantages then get translated very quickly to the consumer in terms of faster deployment, in terms of remote implementation, in terms of continuous product enhancement. So the ability to build and scale a platform in the cloud really sort of changes the paradigm and provides consumers a whole slew of new choices.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really kind of changed the game here. So, Stephen, when exploring postmodern technology, can you share some of the characteristics of ETRM solutions? Just in terms of, a technology roadmap.
Yeah, Shelby, that's a great question. I think the thing you have to start with is in this space, when we're trying to support the trading activities, you usually need fairly complex systems with very deep functionality. And in the past, a lot of these systems have grown up from specific trading houses or companies that have taken a custom developed solution on older technologies and built them out. And those became the products that we use to deploy for most of the situations today. That was a great approach for the first 10, 15, 20 years of the industry. But now, as technology is changing, that platform is not really as extensible or doesn't provide as much opportunity as what modern technology would provide us. And so the real challenge there is that on some of these older software architectures, which these kind of grew up or evolved from, you really don't have the opportunity to take advantage of some of the, what we'll call postmodern concepts of really trying to componentize your solutions, to use cloud technologies, to really accelerate your ability to deliver value to the business as quickly as possible. And so with those changes in the market, we think there's an inflection point now where we can really start to look at newer solutions to solve what honestly in the industry has been a complicated problem, which is how to deliver complex business requirements and complex business software to trading houses. And so we think there's some real opportunities out there.
And so let's clarify. So when we're talking about this, the postmodern technology, we're talking, of course, about, software as a service, the fact that it needs to be a more agile, both literally the platform and, being able to adapt quickly. What are some of those other characteristics that postmodern solutions have?
Well, I think largely it comes down to the fact that by being structured in a way into smaller, more standardized components, you can start to attack problems in more flexible manner. So, historically, we've seen the problem of putting stitching systems together as the challenge. And
Hmm.
so we've tended to go towards more integrated solutions. Now, the problem is those integrated solutions become very monolithic. And when they become very monolithic, they're not flexible to really adapt to the individual aspects that make each business successful. And so those tools become very difficult on the implementation side, on the design side, on the business deployment side, to really get an effective value very quickly to the business. In a postmodern approach, we can take that problem apart. We can do it in pieces, and we have more flexible pieces that can really adapt to the unique conditions for each of the clients that we deal with.
So it's a a modular approach, being able to take those individual pieces instead of it before where it was a little bit more of a hodgepodge. It's more, I don't want to say plug and play, but there are individual pieces that are designed modularly to be able to provide you that functionality that you're looking for, right?
That's true. And in the theoretical sense, we're not there yet, but we will get to it being more plug and play. And concepts like we see in retail technology, like the App Store or like the things on your phone, you don't have to wait for a new phone to get new features. You can go and pick the features that you want to apply. That's where you want to get to with your business software. And this is an area where we are starting to evolve in that direction with tools like CTRM Cloud, where the tools have been architected with that end goal in mind, as opposed to some of our historical solutions, which were just built out to solve an entire problem.
That's a good way of, and a good analogy with the App Store and giving updates versus instead of just getting a brand new phone. Kent, let me bring you in to discuss what some of these postmodern, you know, characteristics of the ETRM solutions that we've been talking about. I mean, what does that mean in terms of functional benefits and how, what do these solutions, what do they afford the end users?
Sure. Really, that end user experience at the end of the day is what it's all about. Does the tool enable that individual, that trader, or that risk manager to perform the business processes or the analytical processes that they need to add incremental value or protect value through their risk management activities in a more efficient way or not? And so all the architectural changes are great as long as they're providing the opportunity to do those sorts of things. So that ability to extend or augment a more modular type of a solution can add a lot of value in that it's easier for customers to bolt on helper applications, that app store type of concept, particularly in areas where it may be to help differentiate that particular organization's core business, where they're doing something that is unique and they want to add on to the tool. If you're dealing with a legacy TRM solution, that could be really expensive. With one of these more modular, cloud-based, API-based tools, it's much easier for those companies' IT organizations or consultancies to quickly develop bolt-on tools that help create value. It also opens the door to taking advantage of technologies like RPA, where there may be a lot of repetitive tasks that need to be performed inside the trading and risk management solution. But the legacy tools, since they're monolithic, it's difficult to coordinate and drive those activities using modern RPA software. So this creates the opportunity to take those repetitive, non-value added tasks and move them off the plate of your core business users so they can focus on higher value activities. And then lastly, the time to value is really important. Many of these ETRM projects can be very time consuming and very expensive to do on many of the legacy solutions because the tools, when you integrate them, particularly in an environment where you have a lot of different technologies in use on the ERP side, master data management, reporting and analytics, the business processes are expected within the software vendors' tools to run their complete life cycle from trade through scheduling, through actualization, and into accounting as one straight through process. But in an integrated scenario, you have to break that process up, with part of it happening in the trading tool and part of it happening in, say, an ERP platform. But those tools, the legacy ones, don't like to be broken up. So it means that you have to develop custom code or things like that to kind of fake it inside the old trading tool so that it can still work. With a postmodern approach, you're able to use the pieces of functionality that you need that are the most valuable to the business without having to do that level of customization. Lastly, on the implementation side, they're really well suited to agile implementation methodologies. Stephen alluded to this. I think they are also, in today's day and age, that idea of remote implementation has been a huge one. Opportune has been working with a number of clients to implement ETRM systems, and having this ability to do it in an agile way and to do it remotely with remote deployments where you don't have to lay hands on the server or hands on desktops to do it is really impactful.
So, Kent, and let me make sure I understand. So, when you mention RPA, I mean, we're talking about process automation, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. And, when you mentioned the point about, being able to take these individual things and with legacy systems, you kind of have to string it together and kind of fake it. What liabilities or I guess, yeah, what are the liabilities that you open yourself up to when you're having to kind of hack a legacy system?
It's a great question. And really, what it comes down to is that those enhancements, those changes and customizations that you build, then are your organization's responsibility going forward. Every time that software vendor patches or upgrades the application, you've got to retest those and make changes to ensure that they still function the way you expect them to with the new version of the software. And so you start to build this pile of technical debt that you have to carry forward as an organization in order to continue to support your business.
Technical debt, that's a great way of thinking of it. Stephen, let me follow up with you. What else would you add in terms of making those technological decisions for your trading systems?
One thing that we tend to underestimate is a lot of times people are thinking about the software solution choice
Hmm.
as a one-time lifetime choice. And then when they want to change their business or they want to change, shall we say, the maturity of their business in certain areas, one of the areas that Kent and I have done a lot of work on is taking companies that were probably a bit more focused on being physical operators into being full-fledged traders. A postmodern approach allows them to apply those capabilities and evolve as their business evolves, as opposed to, historically, you would have had to go out and find another solution. And, the challenge of that is, really the hardest thing with software solutions is really changing the mindset of the users and getting it deployed. That's where a lot of the cost comes from. And so if you can avoid that by taking the existing platform they have, but adding capabilities to it without ripping it out and starting over again, it is a significant value to businesses as they change over time. I mean, some become more sophisticated, some become less sophisticated, and in a world that we're in right now where, business conditions are highly volatile, I think we'll see a lot of scaling up and scaling down. And having that capability is highly valuable to organizations.
And maybe I would just sort of echo that sort of from the demand side, that in this sort of new COVID world we now exist in, and sort of obviously kind of newer, more modern systems that are easily deployed and offer performance. I mean, they're certainly sort of a stronger demand today, and I think what's happened is that over the last 6 or 8 months, many people have kind of sort of seen how their legacy systems are maybe no longer fit for purpose, maybe around performance or around access. And so what we're seeing is, pretty strong demand in terms of that sort of modular approach that Kent is sort of outlining there, whereby, they're really looking for quick and easy solutions to sort of to fit in on top of those legacy systems. So I think that the environment that we're in has sort of, what we're seeing at least on the demand side, is sort of certainly amplifying a lot of the trends that we've talked about here today.
Well, that's a great point, and something that we hadn't thought about before is in one of you touched on this about remote deployment, but now that a lot of us are working from home, what does that mean for those old legacy systems that were kind of band-aided together and fragile as it was, and now we're in this new work environment. I'd ask any of you guys, what does that mean for this for our market right now?
Well, so I guess I'll just kind of follow up on that. So, again, I think it's been a very sort of interesting year in that I do believe that, obviously there was plenty of issues with these legacy systems to begin with. I think the last few months, as I say, has really put a microscope on many of the challenges across the system. I think that in a perfect world, many people would sort of try and just kind of magically make those old systems disappear and put better, newer, more efficient systems in. But all of the challenges we're talking about here, everybody being remote, I mean, that's a big lift. It's a big ask in a perfect environment. So I think that this kind of postmodern architecture is sort of will be here to stay. I think that our customers will be are sort of forced to to rely on these legacy systems for some time to come, as trying to change them in this environment would be very, very difficult. But certainly, I think what we're seeing for sure on our end from a vendor side, from a vendor perspective, is sustained demand in terms of sort of trying to layer in technology on top of those legacy systems, trying to sort of amplify performance, trying to kind of layer in analytics to solve kind of many of the gaps and challenges that have quickly surfaced over the last 6 months.
And I would just say the biggest thing is flexibility is critical and when there's uncertainty. And this approach provides the most flexibility because I mean, I will say from my own personal experiences, my impression of what the pandemic would be is a lot different today than it was in March. And it probably will be a lot different over the next 3 months, even if we get to more certainty and more, sense of what to expect. But the reality of the situation is that along the way, it's been very difficult to know even what the next 3 months looks like in front of you. And so the more you can introduce flexibility, the more you can react to uncertainty. And so I think that's one of the biggest advantages of taking this approach, particularly in today's environment. And as we go forward for probably the next at least 6 months to 18 months of time.
Yeah, and I would add on that the user experience and the ability to support that user is key in this discussion as well. Legacy applications typically have complicated ways of deploying them or remotely managing them. And as our workforce has been sort of dispersed and distributed and hasn't come back to their normal office situation, it's much more difficult to support those users when they're using a hodgepodge of applications, some of which are older, and those tools are more complicated to manage onto their company issued laptop. Maybe they don't have a setup from work at home, and so they're using their own devices, and it can be difficult to juggle and manage. Whereas many of these newer applications are built to be used in the cloud type of an environment through a browser type interface. And so that allows you to offer a consistent experience across the devices that your people are using wherever they may be. It makes it easier for your support teams when those users call in and they have a question or they're having trouble with how it's working. And it opens the door to a lot more mobile type access as well. Many of the older monolithic tools aren't built to be mobile first or to be mobile as well. And so that's another case where having these postmodern ETRM tools and having them integrated in this fashion offers up a little bit better and more consistent user experience. And I think that's particularly valuable right now.
Stephen, let me ask you, what are the implications then for adding on AI or natural language analytics? I mean, how do those fit into the architecture?
I guess the main thing there is by modernizing your stack, a technology type term that we use, you're really setting up your infrastructure to really unlock other capabilities that an organization can use as technologies advance. And so we believe the organizations of the future will be most successful, the ones that can continue to add capabilities very quickly. And taking this approach will allow you to get access and unlock some of those capabilities more quickly and more seamlessly. Some of those key technologies that excite people are things that are like artificial intelligence or predictive analytics, or even just getting access to more advanced analytics where we can start to really record and digitize more of the information that is captured in the process to look at opportunities where there are ways to extract more value from either our counterparties or from the process itself. And so this is jumping onto that highway in a sense, because if you are stuck on the side roads and they have static construction, this gets you over to where you can jump onto a place where you may start in the slow lane, but you can work your way up into the fast lane for some of these more advanced technologies.
Well, fantastic insight. I think that's a great point and a very relevant point. Where we are right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, but being able to lock down your technology in terms of the capabilities, what you need, and the flexibility that it offers, that certainly should be taken into account when you're making those technology decisions. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for the insight, and we really do appreciate all of the conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Shelby.
And that does it for this episode of E2B, Energy to Business. Until next time, I'm Shelby Skurhawk.